There's a few things to check on the front oil pump. These rings that are in here are brand new, and I have checked them already. The clearance, they go in the Taurus, which is the big cover, and on the front of it, and they're supposed to have 2 to 12 thousandths gap, and mine has 5 if I remember correctly. It definitely was within spec. And this, there's a gear. This is the driven gear. This is the driving gear. It's got the keyways that go on this portion, and that's driven inside. It has a recess here and a lip there, so that goes in that way. Check the gears for any scratching or pitting or anything. I found a couple of little marks on one gear, one tooth, and I just took a file and something had bumped against that when it's been apart. So now they're smooth, can't feel them. This goes in here. The manual says that this is supposed to be 30 to 35 thousandths gap in here, and I'm getting less than that, but it's only going to get thicker, so get bigger. There's 25, and that can go in there, but that's about it. So somewhere around 25. So then you have to check the gap in the housing. Okay, driven gear in the pump body should be 3 to 6. We'll check 3 to start with. I wonder if that's oh yeah, there we go. There's 3. It's loose. And I will try 5. Just for a laugh. Okay, 5 goes in. Now I will check 6. Does not go in. So that's within spec. Sorry, 2 to 5.5 is the teeth on the driven gear and the crescent. Let's check that one. Here's 6. It won't go in. Check 3. That's for the crescent. 3 goes in. It's in here somewhere. There's 6, 2, 2.5, 3, 7, 5, and 4. 4 goes in, 5 goes in, 6 won't, so should be just within spec. Driving gear and crescent, that was supposed to be the 30 to 35. I couldn't get 30 in there last time. I'm not sure why it would be tight. It's an old gear. No, definitely will not go in there. The surface of that looks pretty good. I have to clean this all yet, so I will clean it and blow it all out. So that's a bit tight, but I'm sure that will not be a problem. And it does have lots of play there. Make sure you put this bypass valve in. It goes with a spring. And the spring has a spec for length. 1 25/64 is what it says. I have checked that previously, so now I will clean it, put this all back together, put the gasket on it. I've replaced the seal already. These oil sealing rings are good and gap in the Taurus, and then I can put it on the front with the thrust washer, which goes, I believe, in here. I will check that yet. Don't quote me. The front pump has 4 screws, the 3 on the outside. This is a short one on this side, the longer ones are here. There's another screw you have to put in before, put it all together. And that's down inside here. And it says that these screws are supposed to be tightened to 12 to 15 foot-pounds. That's really tight for that size of screw. So I used a impact driver flat screwdriver head, 5/16 socket. In this case, and a 1/4 inch-pound torque wrench. Did them up to 140 inch-pounds. I had to put it in the vise, so it's together and ready to go in. So the thrust washer goes on here. I'll have to check to see the end play, see if that's the correct one or not. Likewise, it would be seated down on here in this ring. So I've greased everything up. I'll put this back on, and that should take care of that part, hopefully. And don't forget the gasket. So I've put it on the front pump assembly right there. I think I may have said previously that I put silicone in here, waited the 24 hours as instructed, and tightened it up. Don't do that. I found that it doesn't work. I ended up with a crack on the flanges. There's an opening there. Pull it off and show you. So that's why I have these bigger washers on. And I have checked them with the bell housing. And these recesses here for the bolts do fit. They do clear with these larger washers, so that's okay. But you might be able to see there's a crack there. And that's from that silicone experience. So what I've done now is I have some gasket material in there, but it even is too thick because there's a raised up. So I will try and find something else. Fortunately, I found some much thinner fragments of gasket paper that I had left, years old, and there's still a slight lip there, but it's nothing like it was. So that's obviously a very thin gasket from the factory. So 1/32 was way too thick. So then I don't know what this one is. I didn't measure it, but it's down in the low thousandths of an inch, and it needs to be even thinner yet. The intermediate shaft is the one that holds the two hubs. Then the primary shaft is this one that goes in from the back. Then this whole tail shaft assembly comes in, and the planetary gears go into the hub. And then everything will bolt up and hold it in position. I still have to check the end play here and to make sure that this doesn't move too much, because of the none of the manual said that there was a thrust washer in there. There is for the primary shaft in here, but there is not for this being on the intermediate shaft. And here's the intermediate shaft, or sorry, the primary shaft right there. So it's got a thrust washer on the inside and a thrust washer on the other side. You have to make sure that it seats correctly. The best idea is to put some grease on that surface in there, which I did, but for some reason it's sticking to the other side. But it's centered, you can feel it. And then the tail shaft goes on. Make sure the thrust washer is there for this surface here. And this goes in. Honest, it does. There we go. And these are the bolts that go in there. Six of those. It says these are supposed to be 10 to 13 foot-pounds. So I will tighten them in threes around here. Things are not centered because this is not being supported. Make sure it does seat properly all the way around. What's dragging there? What's going on? Further checking needed. The initial problem with binding was because this shaft was hitting on the edge. So I've got it clear now, about 1/4 of an inch free. Turns freely. So now I'll put the tail shaft back in. Now torque these up. Do it in stages. Every other. Can do it. So that's 3 of them done. The other 3. And 1 more. Now to check them. Okay, so that's 3, 4, there's 5 and 6. There, those are done. The manuals all say to put the tail shaft on first, or any of the internals. Not sure it makes a big difference, but might be a little easier, so I'm going to do it that way. This hole here on each side has to match up with these oil holes in here, and you can see it only goes one way, so because of the spacing of the bolts, so it should be fine that way. And I'm hoping that this will all line up correctly. So right now it tends to put this down off to one side, which is a bit of a concern. So I'll do that and see if it straightens out. So when I was turning this tail shaft with the pliers and the cloth, there's a chance that I could have put some burrs on there. So I meant to actually run a file across there before I put the tail shaft on, tail housing on, but I didn't, of course. So I'll try it with the drive shaft, and it goes in smoothly. So all is well. One thing I should point out is that this gasket, I made this the same way I made the other one. It's a compass tracing out the inner dimension. Measured it, cut it in half, divided that measurement in half, and then used a compass to trace out, and it fit. Cut that out. So I will trim this off after everything's tightened up. This is the reverse lock, so that's not in there yet. But one thing I have to watch is that this is 1/32 thick paper, which I think is thicker than what was there before. And that thickness might put a preload on the bearing. So I have to see how it turns once things are tightened up. I definitely don't want any stress on the bearing. Now I have a new mystery to solve. This shaft centers okay there. If I push it in all the way, yeah, that's all in. It is off. Why is that? I tried it without the front pump, and it was centered when I pushed it in. Now it's off center. And I found whenever I put the rear shaft on, I'm getting it binding up, and the primary shaft is way off to the side. So I would have thought that this is, oh, you can see reverse. Oh, nope. Straight through. Anyway, this is not bent. It's got some play in it, so it should absorb that. So I'm not sure exactly why this is sitting off to the side. there. Anyway, I have to look further, try and figure out what's going on here. Didn't do that before. Please don't forget to like, share, subscribe, or even notify, or any of the above, or all of the above. Thank you.